Welcome guys into our session 4 of building our Django app. In this video, we are going to create Django variables and see how we pass Django variables inside our Django app. In the previous video, we talked about Django content blocks and also passing snippets. But in this video, we are going to talk about Django variables, see different ways of passing Django variables and also creating lists, and then we are going to practice that. So let's go to our code and see from where we left in our previous video. But in case you have not watched our previous video, you can go and watch that in the description above here. So let's create our variables. So how do we create our variables? First thing that we can do is create context here. And here is where we are going to pass these variables. So these variables, what we are going to do is create these kind of variables here. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to show you two ways of passing these variables or creating these variables. We have method 1 and method 2. Then from there, we are going to see the favorite one or the required one that we can use. So the first thing, after we define this variable here, that is the context. The first thing before we continue, we are going to pass it here. We are going to pass this context here as the context. Remember, this is the context name that we are passing here. Then in the method 1 that we can create is basically take this context, take the context and then pass the name of this here. For example, we can create, maybe we can pass some string like this. We can call this some string. We can pass all the kind of data types that we have. And for example, this is some string. Then inside this some string, we are going to assign this string to some string and say hello world. And we are going to say this is some awesome. We are going to call this awesome string like this. And now we can pass this string like this. What we can do now to pass this context, but this variable, we are going to go to our home. We are going to go to our home.html, and then we are going to pass the variables inside here. So how do we pass these variables inside our HTML? What we are going to do is basically you open the double curly braces, and then you pass the name of that variable, that sum, and this one here we have called it some string. So we are going to pass this name here, some string, and then we are going to see the output. So let's go to our output and then refresh, and then we can see hello world. This is some string that we have passed here, but this, in case you want to print it out, you can just wrap this inside an h1 like this. Then we are going to pass it, we are going to put it inside here and then save. Then we are going to reload and see this is the awesome string that we have passed. Because we have said we can pass in different data types, we are going to see the other data type that we can use. For example, we can copy this and say we can call this some number. We can just call it some num, and then here we are going to pass. We are going to pass the num here. For example, 1 2 3 4 5. Then we are going to save, and then just go to your here. Then we are going to now change this to some num. Then we are going to save and then go to our output. Then we have printed out our num. That is the first way that we can pass or create these variables. The second method that I want to show you is now the other method that we can use. For example, we can comment this for now. We don't need it. Then we are going to create the context here. We are going to create the context here in our method 2. We are going to create the context like this. Then inside here is where we are going to add our content. So to add our content here, we can say this some string like this. Then we are going to pass our string here, and then awesome, we can call this awesome 2, something like that. That's just an example. Then because we already have this, then we can just go here Then everything is already set, but we can comment this because we don't have it. Then we can just come here, then refresh, and we see we have that other method that we have used. So it's the same case that you can apply here for our numbers. So our numbers here, you can just comma, then we can add some num just like this. We can call this some num, and then we can pass a random number here. Then once we save, remember this, we have commented it, we can just uncomment it and then go here, then refresh, and then we have that number that we have here. That's it for the passing these variables. I want to show you something new or something extra, that is passing a list. How can you create a list? Now we have these variables, but how can we create a list and then pass that list there? For example, we can call this, we can create a list here, and this list, we can call this list, list variables, something like this. And this list, we are going to assign that list like this. Then in this list, remember we have a list, and if we have a list, we can append something in a list. So we are going to take these list variables and dot append. We are going to append something like this. We are going to say value 1, something like this. And remember, because this is a list, we can create as many lists as we want. For example, we can create this list and call this list 2, then list 3. Now, how do you print out this list? Then first we are going to make sure that we have this context. Then we are going to assign it here again. Then we are going to say context. And this context, we are going to pass the list here. Then we can just call this list any. Remember, this name doesn't have to match with the list variable, this name here that we have stated here. Then with that, when we save and go and reload, we are going to see some we are not going to see anything or any outputs. We need to comment this first so that it can work out. So now, how do you print this list? Remember, it's a list. We need to loop through this list. To loop through this list, we can go to our home like this, and because it's a list, now we need to open this list like this, and then state a for loop here. But because it's a for loop, we need to open and then close our loop. And to close our loop, first we can say end of the for loop. If we end the for loop, and then here inside our starting block here, where we have initialized our block, we can say for the list items, in which variable. This remember this, the name should be this name here that we have defined or we have written here. So this one needs to be that name. Then there we have our list that is ready to be printed out. Now, to print out the list, we just come here the same way that we have printed out some string. Then we are going to print out this list name here like this. Let's save, then go to our output and then check, and then we have our list of values like this. That's it for creating or using Django variables and also Django list. Thank you. See you in the next one. But in case you have not watched the previous video, here is the previous video that you can go through it and follow the tutorial. Thank you. See you in the next one.